It looks like a front runner has emerged in the Islanders GM search, and we'll discuss the possible impact of this person as the team's new GM. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. We have got a busy show today. A front runner appears to have emerged, although nothing is final as of yet. In the Islanders GM search, we'll talk about the front-running candidate, some of his past actions and pros and cons. Also, an injury update. Believe it or not, the Islanders have not played hockey in a month, and yet injuries still taking place. We'll talk about Bo Horvat's injury. Plus, we continue our player-by-player review of the Islanders with Pierre Engvall. So, plenty to talk about on today's show. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 to the modern era. So glad you could join us to talk a little Islanders hockey today. So, according to multiple published reports, and again, these are not finalized by any stretch of the imagination. But according to multiple published reports, Marc Bergevin, former GM of the Montreal Canadiens, seems to be the front runner as of now for the vacant front office role. Now, we don't know whether Bergevin, if he does eventually sign, will be the GM, the president of hockey operations, or both. But according to several sources, Bergevin and the Islanders are close to reaching some kind of an agreement. And the reason that it appears that Bergevin is the front runner ahead of Matthew Darche is experience. And it appears that the Islanders are heading in that direction. Last week, everydayers may recall, it was reported that Ken Holland was the Islanders' top choice. And yet Holland ended up in LA. He didn't, he preferred the Kings job to the Islanders job, probably figuring that the Kings were closer to winning again and needed less work organizationally than the Islanders. Wanted to stay on the West Coast. I heard that being bandied about as well. But the experience factor seems to be in Bergevin's favor. He was the general manager of the Canadiens from 2012 to 2021. And for what it's worth, he was briefly a player for the New York Islanders in the late 80s up till 1990. Played a total of 76 games for the team. So he does have that connection. The Canadiens reached the Stanley Cup final in 2021 under Bergevin's guidance, but basically he was let go soon after that. Basically, his contract was up, and according to some people, he was burned out. But here's what I like about Bergevin, and here's what I'm a little hesitant about. And again, he doesn't have the job yet until everything, the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. Nothing is final. But what I like about Bergevin, he's not afraid to make bold moves. He has made a lot of trades and really gotten those trades there are moves that you could easily be criticized for, and yet, he went out and did them, and most of his trades tended to work out. Adding players like Max Pacioretty and Nick Suzuki to the Canadiens lineup, I think it just really, it really sort of fell into place there. And everydayers will recall, I have mentioned that the new GM of the Islanders is going to need to be creative and bold in order to make some moves to get the Islanders out of the hole that Lou Lamoriello dug for them. And you have a lot of older players on bad contracts, some of them with no trade clauses, some of them with modified no trade clauses. And it makes it difficult to deal away a Pierre Engvall or, an Anders Lee. There are players on this team who the Islanders probably would like to be able to trade to free up some cap space, to get this roster younger, faster, more skilled, and yes, grittier. But again, it's just one of those situations where it's unclear how to do it. It's not impossible. It may take time, but you get the feeling that Bergevin is able to make some moves, and hopefully, like what happened to him in Montreal, more of them than not will work out and give the Islanders some benefit. Because when we're talking about a retool as opposed to a rebuild, it is important for the New York Islanders to move out cap space. You've heard people say, oh, yeah, we've got to sign Nikolai Ehlers, or, we've got to sign Mitch Marner, or whoever it is, Brock Besser. So many big ticket free agents that fans are interested in signing. You can't really do that unless you make some trades and clear out some cap space. And, you're not going to add the $13.5 million AAV of a Mitch Marner, or the $8 or $9 million a year for a Nikolai Ehlers. You're not going to sign if you have to still sign Noah Dobson and Alexander Romanov and Maxim Siplikov and maybe Tony DeAngelo, you've got your own RFAs and UFAs to try to figure out. If you want to add to this team, you've got to clear out some of these other players, whether it's a buyout, whether it's a trade. Something's got to give. And it seems to me that Bergevin would be the kind of guy, based on his track record, who is not afraid to try something different and something bold. I like that. The thing I like a little bit less about Bergevin, his record in the draft is mixed. He made some really solid picks for the Canadiens, but he's also made some picks that did not pan out. And look, no GM in the NHL, or in any sport for that matter, is going to hit 1,000. You're not going to be able to do that year in and year out. It just doesn't work that way. But at the same time, you can figure out that you got to have more hits than misses, okay? That, I think, is sort of the key. You want to hit, like right now, the Islanders have the number 1 pick in the draft this year. You got to hit on that pick. You don't want to be drafting with the top pick somebody who doesn't pan out. So we'll see whether or not, Bergevin can A, get the job, and then B, how he handles the roster, whether or not he would retain Patrick Waugh if he is indeed hired, whether he has just the president of hockey operations, just the GM job. There are still so many things that are up in the air, but as of right now, Bergevin is the front runner. I really like his bold willingness to make trades. His draft record, more mixed, and we'll see if he is ultimately the person that the Islanders hire. I still think we are at most about a week away from this hire, and it could come at any time. So let's see how it all plays out. Injuries keep on coming. I can't believe it. Here we are, and the Islanders haven't played a game in a month, and yet one of their top players suffered an injury this week. We'll talk about that and its possible impact. And for our Islanders birthday of the day, a defenseman who played with the Islanders in their very first year and has a very unique distinction in NHL history. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days, whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost. They are always my go-to. Or if you prefer cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. That's wonderfulpistachios.com. The Islanders lost so many players to injury last season. At various times, they had 3 defensemen out at the same time. They missed Matthew Barzal, their most dynamic skater, and one of their top line forwards for extended periods of time. Semyon Varlamov, we know, was done for the season by December 1st. So many injuries affected this team. And you think to yourself, okay, the season is over. And yet the injury news just keeps coming. At the World Championships, Bo Horvat leaving Team Canada, heading back to Long Island. He suffered a lower body injury that kept him out of the third period and overtime in Canada's Monday loss to Finland. It was a 2-1 loss in a shootout. So the injury took place during the tournament. The Islanders announcing yesterday, Tuesday, that Horvat is heading back to Long Island to be evaluated by team doctors. Now, Horvat was playing really well in the tournament. 4 goals and 4 assists in 6 games, and just seemed to be, playing at a very, very high level. And yet, right now, we are not sure about the seriousness of this injury. Hopefully, him leaving is more of a precaution than anything else. And hopefully, maybe with, a new general manager hopefully taking over, I'm not expecting a detailed explanation of what happened to Bo Horvat. But I do hope we get some semblance of a timetable, or at least that we get the good news that, come September, when training camp opens up, Bo Horvat will be back on the ice and ready to play for the New York Islanders. And, Noah Dobson's still there. He's got a goal and 3 assists. in 7 games. But, last few days of the tournament coming up, and just really upsetting that Bo Horvat ends up suffering this injury. And I'll say it again. The Islanders have had just some pretty bad luck when it comes to injuries at games that don't count. You can go all the way back to Rick DiPietro getting hurt at the skills competition in the All-Star game. And you may remember he was mic'd up, and all of a sudden it was like, ooh, that wasn't good. He's injured. John Tavares, when he was with the New York Islanders, when he was the Islanders' best player, getting injured in the Olympics and then missing the rest of the season. And now Bo Horvat getting injured. Now, look, it is still mid to late May. So you have June, July, August. You have 3.5 to 4 months before training camp is going to open up. And that's enough time, if this isn't a very serious injury, for Bo Horvat to heal. But you even don't want whatever this injury may be to curtail his offseason regimen by much, whether it's working out to stay in shape, working on a particular skill that Horvat wants to work on, even if it's just, lifting weights or skating occasionally. You don't want his routine to be compromised. That is just not what you want to see. And it's always, a double-edged sword. You want your players to have the opportunity to represent their country. You know that there's, like I said, 3.5, 4 months between now and training camp, so that unless it's a very serious injury, there should be time to heal. But you don't, under any circumstances, want to see one of your players, especially one of your star players, get injured it's not meaningless in the sense of, there's national pride at stake, but it's not the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's not even a regular season game. It is, after everything is said and done, an exhibition. And you go into it thinking, okay, I want my players to do well. It's great that they're chosen. They're playing against top competition. Obviously, Bo Horvat working with Nathan MacKinnon on a line is pretty fun to see. And, if you've been watching these games in the World Championships, you do get to see a little bit more of the creativity that Bo Horvat can bring to the table. But to have one of your better players getting injured in a tournament that is essentially an exhibition is very, very frustrating. And, the first thing you want your guys to do well. You want them to be part of a winning team, but you don't want them to get hurt. And here we are already. This team feels snake bit. I mean, how many different ways can guys get injured? And how many different players will get injured? It's just frustrating from an Islanders fan standpoint. And obviously, we wish Bo Horvat, first of all, we hope it's nothing serious. And whatever the injury may be, we wish him a complete and speedy recovery and hope that he is ready for training camp when it gets underway in mid to late September. Can't make this stuff up, right? I mean, just cannot make this stuff up. We have got more to get to. We'll talk about a controversial Islanders player as we continue our player-by-player look at the team. Pierre Engvall. Will he be back with the Islanders? What will his role be? We'll break all of that down and what it would cost maybe to move on from him if the Islanders so choose. We'll have our Islanders birthday of the day, all that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. So we continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders roster. Every dayers yesterday, we did Kyle McLean. We've done Matt Martin, Simon Holmstrom. We've done Matthew Barzal. We do one player every day until we've gone through the whole team. And today, we are up to the always controversial Pierre Engvall. And Engvall had a rough year. I don't think there's any way around it. There were some bright spots, but there were a lot of trials and tribulations. Engvall going to turn 29 in a week and a half. No longer a kid, no longer a prospect. He is kind of in or actually approaching the tail end of his prime at this point. 6'5", 215. He's a big guy, can skate fast, but there's been tension between head coach Patrick Roy and Pierre Engvall all through last season. Engvall, out of training camp, did not even make the roster. Yes, part of that was cap related, but a bigger part of it is that Engvall wasn't doing what was asked of him by Patrick Roy. Go to the net. Get into the dirty areas. Don't be hesitant to shoot the puck. Use your reach. Use your speed in a constructive way. And we just didn't see enough from Engvall. So he starts the season in Bridgeport. And when this whole rash of injuries hits, he eventually gets called up. Spent more than a few games in the press box when Patrick Roy publicly called him out and basically said, I'm not seeing what I need to see from Pierre Engvall. Now, in the second half of the season, Engvall did put together some solid games. And when he did play the way Patrick Roy wanted him to play, he was capable of being productive. He finished the season with 8 goals and 15 points in 62 games. Keep in mind, yes, he played 12 fewer games than the previous season, but his point total was a little more than half of what it was in 2023-2024. He had 28 points a year ago, 15 points this past season. His plus minus went from a +4 to a -7, and he just didn't play the way that you want to see him play on a consistent basis. And I think that's the key. The talent is there with Pierre Engvall, but the consistency is not. We also know he's not a physical player. 47 hits in 62 games for the season. Believe it or not, the previous year he only had 28 hits. So he increased the number, but it's still like 2/3 of a hit per game on average for Pierre Engvall. Physicality, not a big part of his game. And then obviously the ice time down because Patrick Roy benched him for periods at a time, for many shifts. And then he was demoted from, at his height, he was on the second line and then at the third line for a lot of this season. When he did suit up, he was on the fourth line. He lost a lot of time on the power play. So after being on the ice for a career high 15 minutes and 20 seconds in 2023-2024, last year, that number dipped all the way to 11 minutes and 49 seconds average ice time per game, which, by the way, for Pierre Engvall is a career low. So that was, a disappointing year. And here's the thing about Engvall that the Islanders need to figure out. I think there's very little question that Engvall's contract was a mistake. Signing him at all, not a mistake. I don't think that's the problem. The $3 million annual, salary, I think is a little overpaid, but not a major problem. Problem is that Pierre Engvall has 5 more years left on his contract. 5 more years. For a guy who doesn't play every night because he's not consistent enough, and who isn't listening to his coach and doing what his coach wants him to do, that is a lot of term. And, Engvall could be a good fit on the right team. Not that he's going to be a star. I don't think he's a 20 or 25 goal scorer, not because he doesn't have the skill, but because he doesn't consistently play the way that you want him to play to maximize the talent that he has. So trading him with that dreadful term and the no trade clause that Lou Lamoriello gave out like candy bars on Halloween, it creates a problem. I think Engvall remains a buyout candidate. If the Islanders could include him in a package in some way, shape, or form, I wouldn't be surprised if they do it. You remember, everydayers, buyouts are kind of a last resort. You don't want to have to buy them out because there is a dead cap hit as a result, although it wouldn't be severe in the case of Engvall. But, if you could package him, you could stash him in the minors and save some cap space as well. But, to me, he's already cleared waivers at least twice this past season. Nobody is going to want to take that contract on. And that is the crux of the problem, courtesy of Lou Lamoriello with Pierre Engvall. So hopefully Engvall comes back next year, plays the way he's supposed to play, plays better, or the Islanders find a place to trade him to. I don't dislike Pierre Engvall as a person, but as a hockey player, he just needs to be more consistent and play the game the way he's capable of playing it on a consistent basis. Look, nobody is going to have a great game every time out, but you got to do things the right way, and then more often than not, good things will follow. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day, and today is the 77th birthday of former Islanders defenseman Bill Mickelson. The Nepawa, Manitoba native, 6 feet, 185 pounds, was not drafted, made his NHL debut for the LA Kings in 71-72, and then was selected by the Islanders in the expansion draft and played 72 out of 78 games for the Isles in their first season. He had 1 goal, 11 points, 45 penalty minutes, and was a minus 53 plus minus. 2 years later, he joins the Washington Capitals in their expansion season and sets a record that still stands today with a minus 82 plus minus in 59 games. That is the lowest plus minus in NHL history. Mickelson, very nice guy, spoken to him, interviewed him, but, wasn't his fault. He was on the team with the Islanders that set a record for futility. And then 2 years later, he was on the team that broke that record in the expansion Washington Capitals. Early Islanders, first-year Islanders, 12 wins in 78 games. The first-year Capitals, 8 wins in 80 games. But Bill Mickelson, great attitude, nice guy, and a hockey player who was happy to be in the NHL, played 147 NHL games, 4 goals, 22 points, and 105 penalty minutes. And we're going to go back and look at a very special moment for him. November 3rd, 1972, Islanders in Vancouver to take on the Canucks. Jerry Desjardins, the Islanders goalie. Ed Dick is the goalie for the Vancouver Canucks. And in this game, with the Islanders down 2-1 midway through the first period, our Islanders birthday of the day, Bill Mickelson scores his first career NHL goal. Terry Crisp and Don Blackburn get the assist. That ties it at 2. Unfortunately for the Islanders, the next 5 goals in this game all belong to the Vancouver Canucks. Islanders lose this one by a score of 7-2, but in this game, Bill Mickelson gets his first career NHL goal, and he was a +2 in this game, had 2 shots on goal. So Bill Mickelson, a defenseman who was with 2 expansion teams for the bulk of his NHL career, he is our Islanders' birthday of the day. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. You could find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to address on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. If you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You could follow the show on X at Locked On Isles. You could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYRVSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders throughout this critical off season, and it's always great to talk a little Islanders hockey with you anytime. Everydayers, we're back tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have some more news about the GM and president of hockey operations search. As soon as we get an update on Bo Horvat, we'll pass it along to you, and we'll talk about Scott Perunovich and the season that he had and what, if any, future role he'll have with the Islanders going forward. Until tomorrow, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.